We're going to talk about trig ratios, okay? And the biggest thing you need to know about a trig ratio is labeling a triangle. All right, now labeling a triangle comes from, it depends on what corner it's coming from, okay? So let's say it's coming from A. Now labeling a triangle, you always start with the hypotenuse. So again, the hypotenuse is directly across from your right angle. The next that we're going to have to label is the side that's adjacent. And adjacent, literally, it means next to. So the adjacent side is the side that's touching that angle that we're coming from, okay? So if you put your finger on it, or if you circle this, it's touching that angle. Now, which side is not touching that angle? It's this side right here. This side right here is not touching angle A. That would be on the opposite of angle A, okay? So we have the hypotenuse, which again is across from the right angle. We have the adjacent side, which again is touching angle A. And then we have the opposite side, which is not touching. It's directly opposite of angle A. So that's how to label your triangle from angle A. And again, angle A, that right there, that symbol means angle. Okay? Now this is coming from angle C. So let's circle angle C. Again, you always label the hypotenuse first. The hypotenuse is directly across from the right angle, okay? But now, this side right here, the base of this right triangle is now touching angle C. So now this side becomes the adjacent, and this side over here is not touching, so now this side is now the opposite. So if you look at if you compare these two from angle A and angle C, what's happening is the opposite and the adjacent sides are switching. So labeling a triangle is super important. You need to be able to label the triangle correctly, okay? So what is trigonometry? Trigonometry is the study of triangle measurement. And it's actually very simple to work with. So there's no need to, worry about this. So I'm actually just going to go from, I'm going to cross out angle B. I'm just going to go from angle A. So again, angle A. We want to label our triangle. So we label the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is across from the right angle. This side B is going to be the adjacent side because it's touching angle A. And then this is going to be the opposite side because it's not touching angle A. And that's how we're labeling our triangle. So sine, this is called sine. On the calculator, it's the SIN button. It's the ratio, and remember ratio means fraction, of opposite angle to the hypotenuse, okay? So our opposite is A. So this is going to be, sine of A is going to be opposite over the hypotenuse. Well, our opposite is A. So it'd be A over, and our hypotenuse is C. So sine of this particular triangle right here is going to be A over C. The cosine, which in your calculator says cos, or on a calculator says cos, is the ratio of the adjacent to the hypotenuse. So it's going to be the adjacent to the hypotenuse. The adjacent side is B, so it's going to be B, and then we already know the hypotenuse is C. And then we have the tangent. The tangent is tan in the calculator. And that's the ratio of the opposite angle to the adjacent angle. So our opposite is going to be A, and our adjacent is B. So here are your trig ratios for each of these: sine, cosine, and tangent, okay? So we have a little acronym to help us remember this. It's called SOHCAHTOA, okay? Now from here on out, we want to write SOHCAHTOA on the top of all of our papers to help us remember what the trig functions are. So sine, so this is what it is, SOH. So the S stands for sine, the OH stands for opposite over the hypotenuse. Okay, CA, the C stands for the cosine, is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And then the T in TOA stands for tangent, is equal to opposite over adjacent. Okay, and we use this little acronym to help us find our trig ratio. So let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to cross this off. So of this triangle, see how we're going sine A, cosine A, and tangent of A. So A is the angle that we're coming from, okay? Again, you always label your hypotenuse first. Your hypotenuse is across from the right angle. So our hypotenuse is going to be 13. Now the adjacent is the side that's touching the angle A. So angle A is the side that's touching angle A is 12. So 12 is our adjacent. And the side that's not touching, so see how the hypotenuse and the adjacent side touch angle A? Well, which side doesn't touch angle A? That's 5. That's our opposite. So that's how we would label our triangle from angle A. Well, here we have our acronym SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so let's look. Sine, so is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite is 5. Our hypotenuse is 13. So that right there, 5 over 13, that would be our trig ratio. Okay. Ca helps us find our cosine. So sine helps us find our sine. Ca is going to help us find our cosine. So the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Our adjacent side is 12. Our hypotenuse is 13. So cosine of A is going to be equal to 12 over 13. And then lastly, we have tangent, which is our TOA. So tangent, so TOA, opposite over adjacent. Tangent of A is going to be opposite over adjacent, which is going to be 5 over 12. That would be our tangent. Okay? So sine of A, 5 over 13, cosine of A, 12 over 13, tangent of A, 5 over 12. Those would be our trig ratios. Okay. Now let's look at, change my color, C. Sine, cosine, and tangent of C. So I'm going to redraw my triangle because believe me guys, if you're trying to do all of this stuff in one triangle, it's going to get kind of confusing. So again, we're coming from angle C. So this is 13, this side was 12, and this side is 5. So the 13 is still the hypotenuse. Again, the hypotenuse is the hypotenuse in a right triangle. That does not change. However, what changes is the opposite and adjacent. So this 5 is connecting with the C. So this is going to be my adjacent. And the 12 does not touch the C, the angle C. So it's going to be opposite. Okay. So again, we use our SOHCAHTOA. So sine. Sine is going to be opposite. So 12 over hypotenuse. 13. So sine of angle C, because this is angle C this time, is going to be opposite over a hypotenuse, which is 12 over 13. Cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. So my adjacent is 5. My hypotenuse is 13. So the cosine of C is going to be 5 over 13. And then tangent of C, tangent is TOA, so opposite over adjacent. Well, opposite is 12. Adjacent is 5. So there are our trig functions. Okay? So what you might notice is that the sine of A is the same as the cosine of C. The cosine of A is the sine of C. They're opposites. Again, it's because you're going from the opposite angles. And then the tangent of A and the tangent of C, those are opposite. 5 over 12 and 12 over 5, those are opposite fractions. They're called reciprocals. Okay? So that right there tells you need to be super careful about how you label your triangles. Okay, so let's just do one more example just to make sure we know what we're doing. So we're just going to do number 2. Now, notice here that my hypotenuse is missing. So we're going to have to do some math here. We're going to have to use Pythagorean's theorem to help us find that missing side, okay? So we have 9 squared, we have a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So 9 squared plus 12 squared is equal to, again, we're looking for that hypotenuse. So 9 squared plus 12 squared is 225 is equal to x squared. Take the square root, and I get x is equal to 15. So my missing hypotenuse is going to be 15. Okay? So going from angle W, because again, sine, cosine, tangent are all coming from angle W, we label our triangle. So across from the right angle is my hypotenuse. The side that touches my W, that's the adjacent. And then again, the side that doesn't touch the W, that's going to be the opposite. So then we use our acronym SOHCAHTOA to help us label our triangle, or to help us find our trig ratios. So sine is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. Well, opposite is 12. My hypotenuse is 15. The only problem is 12 over 15 is going to simplify. Okay, they're both divisible by 3, so my final answer is going to be 4 over 5. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's going to be 9 over 15, which 9 over 15 is going to simplify as well, so that's going to simplify to 3 over 5. And then finally we have tangent, which is opposite over adjacent. So that's going to be 12 over 9, which simplifies to 4 over 3. Okay. Now a trick here, if you would like to, you don't have to do that, is 9, 15, and 12. What you could notice is right off the bat, all 3 of these numbers are divisible by 3. So what we could do is we can simplify this entire triangle by 3 first. Okay, and then all of our hypotenuse, because we're going from angle W, adjacent and opposite would be the same. And so if we simplify this triangle first, then we don't have to simplify our trig ratios over here. Because if we did the sine of W in this simplified triangle, opposite over hypotenuse, it would be 4 over 5. That's just, simplifying first is just an advanced thing that you can do first. But if you don't want to simplify it first, or if you don't notice that it's simplified first, then just go ahead and write out the ratios and simplify after, either in your calculator. Remember, the calculator simplifies it for you. Okay?